everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Trini Indian Kitchen. Today, as you can see, we are making Rasgulla, and Rasgulla is also known as Gulab Jamun in India, and I'll talk about the name a little bit before we begin. So, Rasgulla means, I think it means, Ras means like a juice or something sweet, a sweet liquid, and then Gula means a ball. So, a ball soaked in sweet liquid. In India, Rasgulla it's made out of paneer and flour, and it's boiled up. It's made into a ball just about the same size as what I'm making today, Rasgulla, Gulab Jamun, whatever you call it. It's made into a ball of the same size with the paneer and the flour, and it's dropped in a big pot full of bubbling paag or sugar water. So that's what India Rasgulla is. So Trinidad Rasgulla is what India's Gulab Jamun is. It's made out of milk powder or koya, same ingredient that they used to make barfi, milk barfi. So that's what I'll be making today. I'll be referring to it as Rasgulla because Gulab Jamun is a softer, fat kurma. It's also known as fat kurma. It's a softer, bigger type of kurma thing, what we know as, and that's what even my Fijian relatives also call Gulab Jamun, a fatter, softer kurma. So I'm going to show you how I make my version of Rasgulla or Gulab Jamun, whatever you call it, but it will turn out to be the same thing, so keep watching. So here for my dough, I've got a cup of milk powder, whole milk powder. I'm using Klim, but you could use any milk powder brand you have. Half a cup of milk. I'm going to hot this about 30 seconds before I throw it in here. I'm not going to put it in all at once, just enough to make a dough. 2 tablespoons of ghee. I'm also going to melt this before I throw it in there. And I have 3 tablespoons of flour. I might not use all. I'm going to throw it in after I add in the ghee and the milk. And I've also got baking powder. I'm going to use a pinch of that. And that's to make the Gulab Jamun or Rasgulla dough. To make the paag or the sugar syrup, I have 1.5 cups of sugar in a wide saucepan, and I have a pinch of Indian saffron, a little few drop of rose essence, and I have about 10 elychee. You could use as much to your preference, but it has a real authentic taste when you throw in your elychee. And I've cracked the skin on them so that the flavor can come through. And I've also got here about 1.5 cups, same amount of water, and I'm going to throw that in here, and I'm going to boil up the paag, and then I'm going to show you how I fry the Gulab Jamun. So and I've also got here a very wide but also quite deep pan filled with oil, about 2 inches of oil, just enough to accommodate our Gulab Jamun or our Rasgulla. Okay, so I've just hot my milk and I've got my ghee melted enough. So I'm gonna first throw in my ghee, and I'm gonna leave a little bit behind for the end. I'll need that in the end. And I'll throw in a pinch of baking powder. Maybe a little bit more than a pinch, about 1/8 of a teaspoon. And then flour. Actually, first I'll incorporate this into my milk, and then I'll throw in my flour. Okay, everything's mixed. I'm gonna throw in my flour, most of it. Mix that as well. At this stage it feels like breadcrumbs. I'm gonna throw in my milk, a little bit at a time, and I'm going to knead a soft dough. Okay, so I haven't thrown in all my milk, and you can see it's a little sticky. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to throw in the rest of my ghee, and I'm gonna mix this in, and then I'll let it sit for about 10 minutes. Letting the dough rest, I'll just let you know that I have about less than 1/4 cup of milk, about 1/4 cup actually of milk remaining, and about 1/4 teaspoon of ghee. And I'll use this when it's done resting. If it gets crumbly, because it will, the milk powder will soak up everything within that 10 minutes. I'll throw in the rest of the milk, and I'll knead it into a smooth dough, again like this. Okay, so it's been about 10 minutes, and I got my dough here. So if I knead it, you'll see how it kind of breaks up a little bit. This is actually not bad, but we want it a little less crumbly than this. So I've got a little bit of my milk here. I'm going to throw in just a few more drops. Mine actually came out pretty good the first time. Just a few drops. And I'm going to knead this through to make my dough softer. A few more drops of your milk. And keep kneading until you get it adjusted to proper consistency. My dough is soft, a little sticky, and you can see it's starting to stick a little bit at the bottom. So scrape it from the bottom, knead everything together, and whatever ghee you have remaining, you could throw it in here at this point. So my ghee, I'm going to just add. And I'm gonna mix this in. So you're going to take your dough and you're going to grab a ball the size of a grape and you're going to roll it into a small rasgulla without any cracks in it. If it has any cracks, then you're going to have to knead your flour with a little bit more milk. It should come out a little oily at first from the ghee, and this is what you want here. So you're gonna do this with the rest of your dough, and in the meantime you're gonna turn on your stove to hot your oil. You're going to hot your oil on low heat. If your rasgulla balls are ready and your oil is still taking time to hot, then you can make your paag in the meanwhile. So I'm just gonna add my water, and then I'm going to just mix this so that everything can come to almost like a dissolving point. So I threw in about 7, 8 at a time, and maybe as I continue making I will throw in more or less depending on how big or how small I want them, because they will expand once they're in the oil. So the one that I put in first is already about to start floating, and the rest the same mixing bowl that I've just cleaned out, and I've lined it with double layer of paper towel. And when these gulab jamuns or rasgullas are done frying, I'm going to throw them in here, and I'm going to let the paper towel soak up all the extra oil from them, and then later on I'll pour the paag, the sugar syrup, over this after bringing it up back to the next boil. So they're all at the stage where they're started floating. They're cooking quite nicely, and I think the first one that we threw in here, it's already started to change color. I'm about 5 minutes in. I think I'll be taking the next 5 to 10 minutes frying these and changing the color as they cook. And I'll show you exactly how they look like when they're done frying, so that you know when you're making, at what point to take them out of the oil. And here you can already see how they have expanded in size from these small ones. And the reason why you need a wide pan and you're just going to put a few in at a time is because you need to keep stirring them around like this to make sure that all around them has an even color. And if your pan is overcrowded or too narrow, then you won't be able to do that. And this is the color that you want. Let me grab it for you yet once again. And since all of them went in at the same time, all of them can come out at the same time. And you could see the color that they've gotten on them. You don't want it to get much darker than this. And you're going to drain this out. And you're going to put in your paper towel. And if you increase the heat at any time, Then you're going to bring it back down to low or even turn your stove off. Leave it for 5 minutes, throw in your next batch, and then you could turn your stove back on. In goes my next batch. I'll turn my stove on to low, and I'll just wiggle these into the oil. And right away I'll start turning them. And now batch number 2 should be ready. When you see it starts floating and it takes on the traditional Gulab Jamun color, then it's ready. And you can see that it has expanded in size compared to the other one. Third batch is now in here, and you could see how nice and perfect temperature we have with the oil, and you can see how nice and slow they are starting to fry. There's light bubbles coming out of it now, and it should stay this way until it is done frying. And if I didn't mention about the paag already, the sugar syrup, as soon as it starts boiling, you have to turn off the stove and just leave it on the hot element to stay warm. And then pay attention and look carefully when they're frying. Just before they start to puff up, and actually not puff up, they're puffing up right now, but just before they start to float, they will puff up, and you'll see that they change in size. They get a little bigger, but you're still gonna make sure you make them small. Even though they kind of look small, like when you take them out, like the finished ones, you're still going to make sure that you do not want to make them any bigger, because when you pour the paag over top and you let it soak for about 2 or so hours, you'll see that they'll expand again. So I usually like my gulab jamuns lightly colored like this, but who I'm making it for would not know that it's rasgulla or gulab jamun if I left it at this color, so I'll have to keep cooking it until they get like the traditional gulab jamun color. But if you like it a certain way, a certain color, and if you notice that right after it starts floating, if you want to take it out while it's still white, then that's fine too. But if you like yours dark, or even like darker than what I am trying to get here, darker than the traditional color, you can do that as well. It's a very versatile recipe. You could. Okay, so here's all my rasgullas. I finished frying them. They've cooled down a little bit. So I'm going to move the paper towel away, and I'm going to line them up so that they're all flat and not one on top of the other. I'm going to take my paag and I'm going to put it to boil, and when it boils, I'm going to pour it over my rasgullas. Okay, so here's my paag. It came to a boil. I'm going to now throw this, and I've left my elychee and my kesor, my saffron in there. I'm gonna throw this over my rasgullas. And I'm going to just leave it like this for 2 to 5 hours. And within that 2 to 5 hours, if you feel that your rasgullas are not getting enough paag, you can make a next cup of sugar and next cup of water and throw it in your bowl with your rasgullas. But you're going to leave this for about 2 to 5 hours to let everything soak up. You'll know it's ready when your rasgullas sink to the bottom, or if there's very little or even no syrup left. But the biggest key is if they sink to the bottom. They've already started to soak up. As you can see, there's a few bubbles coming around the sides. They've already started to soak up your their paag, their sugar syrup. So I'm going to get a cover for this and cover it and leave it until it soaks everything up. So here you have it, guys, your rasgulla. So when I open up the cover for this, I notice everything is sunk into the bottom. The syrup has been nicely absorbed by the rasgulla balls. There was a little bit of extra, and that's what you could see in this bowl right here. I did just plate it out and I went through a lot trying to hide this from my family, and I still lost like maybe two or three in the process. But um, I hope that the person I made it for will appreciate it, and I will be sending it to them today itself. So I hope you enjoyed this recipe. It's very simple, very easy to make. The only hard part about this is waiting before you can actually taste some. Please do try this recipe and check out my other videos, and also check out my Instagram. I will leave the username at the end of this video so that you can see and check out what I'll be posting, and you'll probably get a preview of the next video that I'll be posting out. And when I am in Trinidad, you'll be able to see some pictures that I take out there, because I will be posting everything to my Instagram. Thanks again for watching.